Village of Wolverine Lake, November 13th, council meeting order. Please stand for the pledge of the flag.
Oh, we got it.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Scott.
Here.
York. Sikowitz. Malik.
Here.
Duff. Dumont.
Here.
Nedrow.
Here, and we have heard from Mr. Duff, Mr. Sinkowitz, and Mr. York that they will not be attending tonight, so.
Move to excuse all three?
Second that.
That was a motion by Dumont, second by Malik. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, additions of business.
We do have one item to add, I guess we could put it at 11G, resolution for designation of street administrator. So just an administrative update that we forgot to finalize when I took over, so we need to do this for Act 51.
Okay.
Where do we want to add that on at?
11G.
Gee,
Okay.
And then,
Yeah, we'll just fly with it. No other changes, so, motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
second?
Motion by Dumont, second by Malik. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Correspondence and information. Let's see, we had a little information about fair housing analysis from Oakland County.
and then if anyone wants to go to the youth assistance.
Yep, Youth Assistance Appreciation Breakfast. And what do we have from St. Cloud? I can't remember what the heck that was.
Just telling everyone who the information is delegates.
Okay. Yep. So we'll move along to the first call to public. Opportunity for general public to address the council on agenda items. Mr. McGee.
It's a team effort.
Hi, everybody. John McGee, 814 Wolverine Drive, and former president of Wolverine Lake. I came tonight because of the item with a certificate of appreciation for Ginger Nicoloy. I wanted to come down and just add my thanks for all the things she has done for the village. I also have the sad news, as I think most of you have now heard, she passed away recently. So it was very, very unfortunate.
Yesterday morning, in fact, yeah.
There will be a visitation at Lynch and Sons Funeral Home in Walled Lake on both Saturday and Sunday, and a service on Sunday there. So I wanted to let people know about that. And for those who didn't know Ginger during all the many years she was active in the village, she was absolutely one of the village's best volunteers, one of the village's best friends. Cannot say more about how enthusiastically and well she did a wide variety of things for the village, from putting together a real estate information package during the depths of the Great Recession to serving on a variety of boards and commissions. She was a great presence in the village. Also, longtime wife of former councilman John Coxeter, and they were quite a pair. So, just wanted to pass along my thanks for all that Ginger did, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Monique?
And guess what? Monique
I'm gonna back 'em
McGee,
up.
814 Wolverine Drive, also here to add my voice. To just shout out, thank you, Ginger. I mean, I'm going to get all teary, so I'll make it quick. Worked with her on the historical team for more than 10 years, which meant every month we got together. And it mostly meant sitting around going through old files and telling stories. And she was just one of the best village boosters. She was always supportive and always helping with things, and will be sorely missed. And just, I wanted to stand up on behalf of what we all called each other, the historicals, we historicals. and say goodbye to one of our own, so wanted to add that. Thank you, guys.
See anybody else? Okay, we'll close the first call to the public and move along to consideration of approving the following consent agenda. We've got minutes from the regular council meeting, minutes from special council park recreation board joint meeting, list of warrants, and then building reports, fire reports, police reports, code officer reports, and the rest of the board meetings. So, anybody,
Sure, motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
motion by Dumont,
Second.
second by Malik. You and us.
Mr. President, I just wanted to pull, I think there's two very minor errors on the Park and Rec Board joint work session minutes, as I remember them. Something Linda questions all the time, memory. But item number 5, start at the first paragraph. I believe that should not be me, but Mr. Sinkowitz asked if the design concept were decided by Park and Recs. He wants to know how this will serve the community, not Scott. And the other one is just a grammatical error. I don't think it's that important, actually.
Okay. So we have a friendly with the amendment
Yes.
of the Parks and Rec minutes? Bob, you agree?
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
yes.
so with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Roll call, sorry.
Oh,
Caught myself.
Scott?
yes.
Malik?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Board appointments. Recommendation from the Parks and Rec Board to reappoint Diane Breakovich to the Parks and Rec Board for a term ending 12/31/22.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Dumont, second by Malik. I think I know how this is going to go tonight. Any discussion? I think Diane's she's done a great job in the Parks and Rec Board. so-
And she's not here.
And she's not here, but, yeah, you don't have to be for reappointments.
No.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Moving on to B, recommendations from Planning Commission to reappoint Paul Snyder to the Planning Commission for 12/31/22. Reappoint Kathy Moretto as liaison to the Zoning Board of Appeals. To appoint Paul Snyder as liaison to the Water Board, and the table liaison to Parks and Rec until we get somebody we can sign up for, so.
Make that motion.
There's a motion by Malik.
Second.
Second by Dumont. Backwards. Any discussion? And they've been doing a good job in planning also, so. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries on that one. Recommendations from Zoning Board of Appeals to advance Kyle Ingraham to full ZBA member from the alternate position. We've also got Craig Menaletti for term expiring 12/31/22. Aaron Laybourne, same term, and Connie Tupper to reappoint all three of those two for the ZBA. So, motion to...
Motion.
Do
I'll
not-
second it. Give me a
Second by
chance.
Scott.
John's got it.
As far as discussion goes.
Could I ask Jennifer a quick question? Sure. Jennifer, we've had, I guess basically a member of your team at, was it 2.5 years, 3 years of
At the
zoning board?
ZBA.
Any comments in terms of improvements and management styles?
Oh, definitely, absolutely. We had put together, when we first started attending the meetings, checklists and kind of help them go through the fact-finding process. And
Which
they-
I've seen in every.
Right, so they're actually doing that, and I had the chance to go to a meeting, I don't know, earlier this year, and they did that really well. I gave them some pointers as to how to include those findings in their actual motions, because they were kind of just like relying upon the number on the checklist
Mhm.
and just helping them like kind of explain, you have to state those findings in your motion, but they've been doing, they regularly have some pretty intense issues at the ZBA. So I think it's really good to have that assistance there.
I
But they,
totally agree with that.
yeah, they seem to be doing really much better than they were when we
Excellent.
first started going to the meetings.
Appreciate those comments. Do you also do any training? I know that we've been fortunate on the water board that all of the members of the water board have attended and practiced I should say, completed a 44-hour session that the extent, well, you did it too, didn't you, Michael? Did you do the course?
No, not yet.
Oh, you did?
Nathan.
Okay.
Nathan did, that's
I'm
right.
looking at doing that course.
Yeah. It's an intense kind of board to be involved with. I mean, is it something that now with the look back that the council might recommend that the zoning board go through the same kind of annual or quarterly or every 4-year kind of course? I mean,
Yeah, definitely. I don't know that we've done any training seminars this year, but for the last, I don't know, 7, 8, 10 years, we've done pretty regular training seminars with the ZBA.
you mean you
Even
as our
as
counsel
your-
in the firm, I see.
Right.
I know we had one
I think we
about
did
3
one
years
like,
ago.
yeah, council and the ZBA.
I was on
Mhm.
Yeah.
ZBA back in,
We haven't done one this year. It might be good, but the classes that Oakland County or the MML or the MTA even, which is the Township Association, but they have great, same issues, really.
Mhm.
I'd like to really see that, I mean,
It'd be
we've
great
had
for
this
them to go to
discussion in the
that.
past, and I think it would be great to not only have ZBA, but planning. I mean, anybody that gets onto one of the boards be involved in some sort of training.
Right.
for
That's
by the
relative to that
council.
board.
Right.
ZBA, especially because, they're a judicial board, and their decisions go for the entirety of the property. Planning, I mean, there's a lot of issues that, Bob, you've been on planning, I think.
no,
The
never,
ZBA
that's the
anyways.
only one, ZBA.
Well, I've been on planning for quite a few years, and that was the first thing I did, is I went to a Michigan Association of Planning seminar, and it was a zoning and planning training session. and
Right.
That's really the way to really get an idea and feel for how it
In
goes.
some of our communities, I think we've done it here a few times, both the Planning Commission and the ZBA, whenever they get a new member, we kind of have a little,
Orientation
one-on-one.
type.
Yeah, orientation kind of meeting with them and go over the basics of everything. But then it is good to have a training session with the entire board sitting down and talk about, what I've noticed in the last few years that is happening more and more, and I don't know if it's just better communication, but there was a lot of variances going on of the same, I'm gonna make up something right now, but we're gonna say a side yard fence or something. A lot of variances going on with no input to the planning commission saying, hey, we need to maybe look at our zoning ordinance. Instead of keep granting these variances, maybe we need to adjust our legislation.
Right.
And that has been happening more in the last few years, where planning has actually made some changes in your ordinances based on what was coming out of the ZBA. What they were seeing, accessory structures, I think, was one of them. So I do see that relationship working better, but training is always good.
Never hurts.
Yeah, and, my past experience with zoning, you have always kept us up to date on changes and things. And before, you used to come to the meetings, and now Leanne, I believe, has been.
Right.
And I haven't been on for a couple of years now. But you always, and she always made it a point to keep everybody informed as to changes. And if something wasn't going according to Hoyle, let's say, it was pointed out.
Right.
And again, that 5 or 7 step program has made a big change in how that's presented too.
Our job at the meetings isn't to guide the decision-making, because that's, a process they need to go through. It's to guide the procedures, really, and to help them stay on track with, here's your criteria, here's your facts, apply them, and how to do that.
Talking about boards, I do have a question. Is it appropriate when, we have Mark and David, and I think John, who are liaisons to boards, is it proper for them to make motions? Or should it be up to the board members and them for seconds, or, I've noticed that in the minutes a lot, where we have a member, and David, I'll use that as an example, has made a lot of motions, okay? Isn't that the objective of the board and the liaison, is to fill in and
It
You know,
doesn't-
I don't know.
mean, any member of that body can make a motion.
They're actually a
Typically.
member of that body anyways.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, well, I didn't know. That's
Yeah.
why I just see it, and I know when I was on, zoning, I would kind of sit back. I'd make seconds, all right,
Right.
to stuff, but I'd let the board.
You mean as an
present-
alternate, you would?
No, I was, well, yeah, I was an alternate, but I was also a
Council
liaison,
liaison,
from
Oh,
council.
okay, I see what you're saying, yeah.
All
No,
right, I
mean,
wouldn't make the motion, but I would second a motion.
Yeah. There's nothing prohibiting that.
Okay, no, I
Yeah.
just asking the question, because, you've got a 7-member board.
Right. Procedurally, really, the chair of the board or the council, is, and this isn't a legal standard, this is just parliamentary procedure.
Right.
Shouldn't make the motions, or is not, best for the chair of the organization to make the motion, for the other members to do that, because they're leading the meeting, but-
Sure.
But it happens, and it's not unlawful for that.
Oh, no, I'm not knocking it, it's just, it
Yeah.
stood out, all right, in the minutes, and that's why I asked the question.
In that same vein, actually, and I know we haven't, I think we still have a motion, but,
we're still in discussion.
We'll get back to that.
Yeah, we can get back to that. So when one of our boards brings a motion forward to council, does that motion need to be, I'll say, moved and then seconded, or simply seconded to move to discussion?
So if, let's say, it's coming from planning commission, because planning commission is a recommending body, so all of their motions mostly move on to council. So it would be first and a second, always. So any motion that is made, and it may not necessarily leave that body and go on to council from there, because ZBA, that's the final stop. It doesn't go to the council anyways. But it would be a motion and a second, always. That's how you vote. That's proper procedure.
I'm speaking specifically of the ones brought to council
Like from.
from a board.
Like,
From Park and Rec.
like, let's talk about some water board issues or
Water
something.
board, sure.
No, I mean, that could be done in a report, it could be done in a memo, it doesn't need to be necessarily in a motion form. A lot of times, different bodies will put together a report to go to the administrator or just council in general and be made part of the packet so that you can talk about it at a council meeting, but doesn't necessarily need to be in a formal motion. If there's discussion about it at your meeting and, let's touch base with the administrator and have him put together a memo to send to council so council can know that this is an issue for us and need to talk about it. But then your liaison too is a good person to, take that back to council too. And it doesn't necessarily need to be in a motion form. It could just be, and you're communicating because you're the liaison.
David, are you pointing to some of the early questions that were asked when we put in the consent agenda all of the minutes, which could include budgeted approvals by a board on line
I'm
items?
not.
Okay. I guess another way to ask that
Yeah.
question of you, Jennifer, do budgeted items need to, if approved by a board within the constraints of their budgeted allotted items, and it's a properly budgeted request, does that need to individually then come out of those minutes and go into our agenda? No, it can
No,
be
'cause
part
you've
of the
approved the
consent
budget,
agenda,
right.
yeah. It's non-budgeted items which affect Mr. Condic's book magic.
In fact, that's what we've been recently doing here, we've
Yeah.
been shifting that a little bit.
Shifted
so.
it. It makes it a much cleaner meeting,
Mhm.
and thanks to Michael for incorporating it. Just wanted to put
I
that out
mean, there
there.
may be some special exception to
course.
that, but as a general rule, no, it doesn't.
Yeah, I think we need to continue to encourage the board members to, we've always encouraged paying for their training, so,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's a great idea.
yeah, just trying to get them to go, I guess.
Yeah, that's always been the struggle.
Yeah, and I think part of the question here was whether or not it is a plus or minus that if you're going to go onto the board, there is
To be
somewhat of a requirement to go
right.
through some level of educational background.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something for council to consider. I don't know what your attitude since you've been there, and it can be complex. I know I've been to Oakland County Planning Commission meetings where they hold these, and it's only there that I learned that it was actually the planning responsibility to actually work with the Park and Recs department in order to put their master plan
Master plan
together, and
together.
it falls
Mhm.
underneath planning to be approved, right?
And most of my experience has been with zoning. I mean, it goes back 35 years.
Yeah.
And I can remember when it came in and somebody liked something and somebody didn't, and I've seen the progression as the changes and the proper way of, following the path to do things. So it's been for me, over the years, a big change in experience by the people that were on originally when I got back in the early 80s and into the 2000 era.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Good.
Okay,
Scope and comment?
any more discussion?
No.
Killed that one.
You want to take a short meeting into a long meeting?
Yeah, here we go. So, okay, also all in favor on the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
yeah.
Aye,
Opposed?
aye, aye.
Is anybody else opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to number 9A, audit presentation from Raina Edmonds. Welcome again.
Sorry to make you wait that long.
Oh, no, no.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Raina Emmons. I'm a partner with PSLC, and once again, it's my pleasure to present to you the village's audited financial statements for your fiscal year ended June 30th, 2019. I thought coming this, a little earlier in November that maybe we would, it would be a little nicer out, but
And what were you thinking?
yeah, I've lived in Michigan my whole life. But I do have a very good report for you this evening. The village did receive the highest level of audit opinion possible, which is an unmodified opinion, so I don't have anything bad to report to you tonight. It's considered what they consider a clean opinion, no exceptions or disclaimers or anything like that to report. Just starting out with highlights like I normally do. Property tax revenues are up, about 5.5% increase, and that's all taxable value. That's not, you didn't raise your millage rate, so that's all taxable value, which is, we really like to see. That's a very good percentage. And you've been about that level the last couple of years. So that means, that's great for the village. That shows that your property values are staying stable and increasing. So that's, that's probably some of the strongest I've seen in southeastern Michigan. State shared revenue also up slightly, 4% increase from the state, which, as you know, is sales tax and income tax that the state collects. And that's kind of dependent on the economy and what they're going to collect and then distribute to the local units. So we're happy to see a nice increase, and because that was stagnant for a long time. Also, investment earnings up this year, a nice 60% I have to throw out there for you. We'll thank Mr. Kondek for taking advantage of the nice rates in the Oakland County Investment Pool, which you're a part of. So that, that added to the bottom line this year. So overall revenue's up, and from some of those darker years, we're really happy to report on years like this. We ended up adding $72,000 to the general fund balance. In the prior year, you added $80,000, so it's pretty consistent from last year. You came in under budget, of course. You had expected to use up $285,000 in general fund balance, but in reality, it came in to the positive. You didn't end up sending as much to the street funds, and also some of the capital outlays spilled over into the next year, so it didn't all hit last year. So you actually came in under budget and adding. The other significant things are, so building permit revenues. Last year I reported to you, they were way up. You had the Beechcrest development. This year they came down from last year, so last year was a, kind of an anomaly. You're still up for the village itself, but that is coming down though. A decrease from last year, but overall, still pretty healthy. And then going on to the expenditures, the only department that was significant increase was police department, up $75,000. Part of that, as you know, pension contributions are included in that, and also we've added some officers, or added in the wages, basically. Major capital projects this year included the Village Hall perimeter, the fencing, finishing up the LED sign for the village, and also the Oak Island Park improvements this year were significant. Also have to report no new debt this year, and you did pay down $285,000 in principal on the outstanding debt that you do have. Net pension liability increased this year by $205,000. Last year it actually decreased, and really, it's the village contributed everything you were supposed to contribute and then some. So what the actuaries tell you, you put in 100% of that, plus you added some additional. But what happened this year is we report the pension on the actuarial valuation happens to be December 31st, 2018. It's not as of June 30th like your fiscal year end. So if you remember, on 12/31/18, what the stock market did, it pretty much plummeted. Now, you made all that back in January and early February, that all came back, but as of the date that we're reporting on, we're actually showing a net investment loss for the year, because we report as of a date, so as of 12/31/18. Let's see. Oh, so the actual net investment loss was $87,000. That's, we normally see about a $200,000 investment gain at year end for your plan. And then, this, hopefully, that will all be corrected next 12/31. So the net pension liability ends up being $1.46 million. You do have, that's also taking into account that you do have plan assets set aside at MERS, and, other than the anomaly of the stock market, they've done a pretty nice job of keeping up with the investments. Also, net other post-employment benefits, what we call OPEB. Last year was the first year you started recording that on the books. And that increased $9,000 this year over the last year, so nothing to get excited about. I mean, your overall net OPEB liability is $157,000. So that's, you're actually happy to see that. It's not, many communities have those liabilities in the millions. So $157,000 is very manageable. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Do you have an extra copy? The reports you're going through?
Yeah, you
Oh.
got, didn't you get?
I can either run upstairs and get one, or...
Oh, it's okay, I'll catch up with you.
Okay.
You can get one. See one in my book now.
Really?
You are welcome to mine.
Huh? If it has particular notes, I'll take it.
No, I don't know.
No, I'll get one from Mike, it's fine.
Reference
Yeah.
it tonight.
No, I won't have time tonight. I'll stop in and I've got to drop some coats off, so. Now, let me ask a question, and I guess it's addressed both to you and also to Michael. Relative to, you said $1.4 million is that what MERS is reporting, Michael, in terms of a deficit? I want to make sure I understood what that number was. Relative to being underfunded, I guess, let me put it to you that way.
Yeah,
Okay.
you kind of took the words right out of my mouth there. I don't think the
Sorry.
dollar number is as important as the trend in funding level is.
Okay.
We had been going up, with those, I think we've made 4 of the contributions for the, the extra $100,000, which has, been very helpful, but, we've also got some new employees now, and we're going to have to figure on what MERS is going to have to say about that, as Raina pointed out. I mean, effects of investment earnings are kind of smooth over a period of
Yeah.
time, so it's not like the debacle at the end of the calendar year, 2018, was that devastating. But, we've got the state's on everybody to kind of make sure that your funding level is, I believe they want you to be around 60%, and make sure that you're not governmental revenues to augment that, to bail it out, and I think we're okay there as far as the, state giving us the imprimatur or whatever, so, I don't know if that answered your question or not, but.
It's close. I guess the bottom line is the trend is not totally in the wrong direction.
No.
But would the village and the residents have to look to council or council to MERS to hear that we might have to add more than the $100,000 in some
Well,
future
there is a
years?
trend now and you probably know about this, John, that the so-called discount rate, which is the implied kind of rate of return, is going down. And all actuaries are, step in whenever you like, Raina, all actuaries, private sector or public, are kind of taking that into consideration. We were, I think, at 7.75. We're going to go below 7. And just in general, you should have a sense that that means, a lower implied rate of return means, that we're going to go against the grain as far as funding. But that's nothing peculiar to us, it's just generic.
So we're with everybody else. I guess that's an interesting feeling.
Oh, no, other places are
Worse.
worse, some better, almost 100% funded. If you recall, and we'll have to have a discussion with MERS in the near future, a couple of years ago when we started the extra contributions, the trend line was that we were going to be somewhere in the vicinity of 80 to 90% funded at the end of that time.
But I'm not hearing that to be the case anymore.
No,
Okay.
and, another MERS surprise, but it's largely because of events that are kind of out of their hands. It's these implied sort of new assumptions as far as rate of return that are now, going to take hold and probably result in us being, kind of treading water again like we were.
And it's the state legislature that has said, they've come out and said, we want you to use these percentages or less. So they have what they call uniform assumptions, which all the municipalities are now required to use. So 7.75 was fine when, for this year, but going forward, they want all the actuaries to follow the uniform assumptions. So that is, like Mr. Kondak said, it's going to drop your discount rate, which is going to show a bigger liability.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason, because they were actually going the other way before. They were
some
showing
communities were
showing a
using
higher
very
rate of return.
aggressive
Right.
discount rates.
Yep.
And so their numbers look much better than they really were. So that was kind of legislature's way of reining them in and saying, okay, let's all use, uniform numbers. And here's what we think is acceptable. So use this or less, and we're good.
And that's one of the reasons why the state has changed or capped the involvements of certain kind of defined benefits and have moved a lot of the state employees into voluntary contributory retirement funds.
Right,
Correct?
because as you're seeing that,
401Ks, 457s, whatever, they're actually 457s in the state.
very difficult to maintain these defined benefit plans for long periods of time.
Yeah.
And that's, so absolutely the trend is toward defined contribution plans and the like, as opposed to the defined benefit plans.
More money is needed to be found out there somewhere in future councils, is what I'm hearing. So, depending on what goes on, but let's carry it forward. Thank you.
Good. Yep. Anything else? I just want to say thanks for the audit, and thanks again to the office staff, and especially Mr. Kondak here for doing a fine job again this year.
Thanks for coming out and telling us all this good news.
Oh, no, my pleasure. And it doesn't, it's a team effort, as I've told you in the past, this is a team effort. We also appreciate council's support for letting us do our thing. And, Mr. Kondak, he starts his planning in the summer, and that's how we get here in November. Otherwise, we'd be closer to the end of the year. By the time we get it all together, I'd like to thank, our new administrator, Smith. He's very accommodating, and, everyone works well together, and that really helps. That really helps us get here.
You reflected that in a lot of the comments in this cover sheet here too, so.
Right.
Great.
We picked nothing but the best.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Moving forward, so we had Item B was going to be a certificate of appreciation for Ginger. John?
Yeah,
Open to you.
yeah, just wanted to say, I think it's, appropriate as you guys were planning to defer.
Oops.
John McGee, 814 Wolverine Drive. Just wanted to say, I think it's appropriate as I think you guys were planning to defer a presentation, given that Ginger passed away this week.
Yeah.
But it did occur to me that it might be nice to do the certificate, make it available to the family so it could be on display at the visitation and service this weekend. So I just wanted to mention that. Thanks.
Good thought.
Would that be possible? Okay. Well, then we could present that maybe to the family and maybe have a formal presentation next month at the December meeting, so.
In lieu of that certificate, I think we should take a minute and
That'd be great, Bob. Yeah.
for Ginger.
Mhm.
She's a great part of this community over the years.
She put a lot of time in on the planning commission, and I spent a lot of time with her on planning, that's for sure, and also on the historical team, so that'd be great. So if we could have them on assignments, please. Thank you. So we'll defer that one to next month, I guess, and hopefully her family will be here. So, moving on to item C, recommendation updates from Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Council. Item number one is something that we've been working on for about a year now, and that's the dredging of the sediment basin behind the gabion baskets there in the Greenway Drain. We went out for bids, and you can see by the November 7th letter to Mr. Smith that we sent the bids out to four different companies that do this kind of work. I met American Marine out on the site. We did the measurements. We evaluated how it was going to be done. Their proposal is to use a large excavator and dump trucks. They will be putting a siltation fence around an area. They'll be dropping the material into that, let it de-water for a couple hours, and then loading that relatively dry material into a truck and hauling it away. As you can see, their price there is $17,480. That is down from what I had estimated it to be at. I had estimated it was going to be about $30,000, so they came in well under the budget. They did want me, and I think it was in the letter that we presented to you as well, that it really depends on whether or not the testing of the material has any hazardous chemicals in it. The DEQ is providing us a list of chemicals that they would like us to test that sediment. And if in fact that sediment has the heavy metals at a certain concentration, they'll actually require that material to be taken to a hazardous waste dump instead of just a regular landfill. American Marine called me today and said that cost would be between $5,000 and $7,000 additional if it has to be taken to a hazardous waste site. Now, that being said, the DEQ does give a waiver if we wanted to leave it on site. But if those of you are familiar with that area, it's a fairly heavily wooded, and we would be changing the area, the environmental situation in that area there if we were to just take the material out of the hole and leaving it on site. There would be some savings, certainly. If it does have heavy metals in it, we are allowed to leave it on site. The village owns the property on both sides of the drain, so we could do that. It would also save on any hauling costs if we wanted to leave it on site. That's something that I've never really considered because that area is fairly pristine, and I'd always thought that we would haul that out. So that being said, this cost of $17,480 for the budget for the dredging would be accurate. You might want to put in there that if in fact hazardous material is found, that council authorizes it to be hauled away and taken to a hazardous waste dump for an additional $7,000. That would be, put the budget at about $24,480, say $25,000, which gets us a little closer to what I had estimated the budget at. They can do this work all the time up until the spring rains, so they're not bound by any major time. We're in this budget year, and so they'd be looking to do it at their leisure anytime between now and through January is what they're looking to do. Their plan would be to bring in material to strengthen the drive that's in there now so to hold their trucks. As they loaded and took it away, then they would clean up that area when they were done, so it would leave a little bit better access to the maintenance area for the future. So that being said, it's up to council's discretion as to what to do with this item.
I have a question.
Sure.
Because you only have 4 council members here this evening,
Mhm.
in order for you to appropriate any money, you need 5 council
Mm.
members. So I don't, Mike,
Why do we need 5?
it's in your charter. It's a
Well,
requirement in your
we-
charter.
We budgeted $30,000.
So that's my question. Do you have like appropriated money for like the Greenaway drain?
We do, we have a specific
Okay.
line item for it.
Okay, and then that was also my question for the next one, for JGM backhoe for the $7,000 bill. Is that coming out of money that's already been appropriated?
Yeah, that's going to be local road funds, correct?
Okay, so not bad news.
Good.
I have a question. The fact that, let's say there are contaminants there,
Yes.
that, you know, the village didn't create those contaminants. They come from down the road. Is there any way of going back to the county to get anything to help with that? Because it's a drain that starts how many miles away and brings all this, and we are the deposit point?
It's a very, very good question, and you have 3 entities really that contribute to that, 4 entities that contribute to that. The county is a Chapter 4 drain. It's an old farmer's drain, so the County Drain Commission, Water Resource Commission is supposed to take care of it. They have no funds to take care of it, okay? Occasionally, they'll do a study and present the results, but otherwise, they have no method of maintaining it. You do have the Road Commission for Oakland County, who, all of Pontiac Trail, Maple, so that area, see at South Commerce Road, that area drains into the Greenaway Drain, and they would contribute to it, but, so you're talking about the heavy metals that accumulate in the dust that's on the roads and things like that. You have Walled Lake, who their DPW yard and the roads that they own and the subdivisions like empty into the Greenaway Drain, and you have Commerce Township. So now the question is, which entity is going to accept that responsibility? Bottom line, none of them will. And to go after them would cost a great deal more than cleaning this drain out.
Okay,
Is there-
but you mentioned a $7,000 bill.
Yes.
All right, so let's say we have to do this and spend $7,000, and I'm the devil's advocate here. Do we split that 4 ways and send them all a bill and see if there is any response?
Fortunately, that's council's decision.
No, I'm just,
But-
you know, it's, we're not creating a problem, we're living with it.
As a matter of fact, the village virtually has no runoff into that portion of the Greenaway Drain.
Right.
So you're absolutely correct. That is something that politically council would have to discuss and decide whether to suggest a letter be sent.
Michael, in following up where Bob is, I totally agree with Bob in this, but you, I believe you were in the
Yep,
meeting
I
also.
was, yep. And
Myself,
Mr. Smith.
Mr. Sargent, and Mr. Smith. I contacted Nash, and we had 2 different meetings, and you were there.
Yes.
And they were talking about the fact that these very items that we're talking about, Bob, the contaminants, are something that the state is implementing oversight on. And we were told by, I don't know, I think both the road commission was really trying to duck underneath that in the second meeting, but with Mr. Nash's group and his engineers, that we should have heard from the Water Resource Commission or those engineers, what was it, something in August that they felt that this program would have enough of a push to have community meetings, and we were going to reach out to Walled Lake.
At a more recent meeting, they stated spring. It's been delayed.
It's been delayed. So, I mean, I think in the future it is coming. I think it was my interpretation that the Oakland County Road Commission really has more exposure to this than anybody else. But, so I think the sum and the substance is that in attending 2 meetings, which I think were each about 2.5 to 3 hours apiece, we're back into governmental delay till somewhere in the distant future.
Yes.
So is there any reason to believe that we can take this $7,000? We'll find out what the contaminants are.
Yes.
Most governments seem to me are proud of the fact that you never can escape their lien capability. Can we as a governmental body keep those costs in some kind of hidden locker or locker and say, okay, here's what you've cost us over time. These have been your contaminants. And yes, it occurred, and we had to clean them up in November of 2019. But now that you have this going, we're presenting you with a bill. Figure out what to do with it. Would that be something that, I don't know.
Well, they were even talking about possibly like a type of vortex chamber or something off Maple
we're talking
Road,
about
right?
helping
Pontiac
us.
Trail.
Yeah.
That's correct. There's an old chamber there that the road commission didn't even know about.
Yeah.
And the problem with the vortex chambers are it doesn't take chemicals out of the water or heavy metals. It takes sediment out of water. So so that we're removing the sediment, and on those particles of sediment, we end up potentially of having some heavy metals that they don't want to have put in a regular landfill. So that's where we're at. So we're speculating a little bit. I have no problem documenting. We will be documenting exactly what the materials are, and I can work through the administration, and we can at least let the communities know that the village, this is not due to the village at all. This is due
Yeah, I guess
to-
first of all, let's see where it plays out.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what you have to
I guess
do.
the question I had was, and it's gonna be a couple items down, but is that a possibility we could take that material and fill our other pond that we're looking at?
And I've approached the contractor on that. The concern is, it's already going to be very saturated, and it's going to be very organic.
Mucky, yeah.
And mucky, and that's not considered the same site,
Good
first of
fill,
all, if
yeah,
it is.
right.
If you put that in there, all you're going to do is end up with little darker muck. And so there's no way you can push that in and actually have it stable. You'd force it out into the ditch line in Benstein, in McCoy, and we'd end up with it in our lake probably. So that would not be my recommendation.
And if there are contaminants, they're not gonna want you to move it to another site.
That is, you are
So
correct.
it's
So even
not-
the algae pond would not be. a
Even the
good-
algae pond
Yeah,
is
that's
too
what I was
far away,
thinking.
that is correct.
Okay. It's worth a try.
I had thought about the same exact thing. Contractor said, no, you do not want that in your fill.
Well,
So the summary is you're looking for an approval for a motion for a total of $17,480 plus a possible $7,000 for a total of
well,
$24,480.
not to exceed
Not
value
to
of
exceed
24.
25,000, say.
25.
And Michael, we already have budgeted, what,
30.
did you say 30,000?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it falls within what's been budgeted.
Still less than our budget.
So we can
Right.
approve it tonight is what
And
I'm hearing.
hopefully we don't have those heavy metals, and
Correct.
we're coming in around the
Right.
$17,000 figure.
And if we do, maybe we can get something back through the chain of command.
If we're gonna document it, at least we can
Right.
approach it at that point.
And I would recommend that, and John, I think, represented it correctly, the road commission has the most liability. The heavy metals are gonna come from the street and the cleaning process there and the cars. A letter to them with an invoice as to what the village paid, certainly,
Not
it'd be
gonna hurt.
better politically to do that than our neighboring communities.
Mhm. Okay.
So I make a motion to accept Michael's presentation for, what's the name of it?
Not to exceed $25,000?
Yeah. American Marine, am I correct?
That is correct.
I'll second.
Motion by Malik, second by Scott. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Scott,
Yes.
Malik,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes. Moving on, payment request for JJM Becko service for the amount of $7,000, and that was pertaining to the,
This is actually the Shanken Court
that's
storm
right,
sewer
the
system.
storm sewer over there.
And quite frankly, the installation of the storm sewer system went extremely well. We didn't interfere with any of the sanitary sewer. It fit in there beautifully. The most unfortunate thing that happened during that program is just as soon as it was totally completed, seed and mulch put down, we ended up with a 3-inch rainstorm in an hour. It was terrible. Believe it or not, we received calls from neighbors saying, how come my street is flooded? Well, unfortunately, no storm sewer was going to carry that away, and if you recall the design of this, we put storm sewer and gravel underground, so the water ran off and stayed
Dissipated.
underground except for what it couldn't accept. It took 3 hours, 5 hours for virtually it to be gone. So it actually functioned, but it wasn't, it's one of those things, like, there's flooding, what's changed? Oh, obviously, it's the road's fault, not the rain. And so, bottom line is, it's been working perfectly ever since. We haven't had any, we've had maybe a couple inches of water in the bottom of the ditches. We haven't had anybody call and say, great job, but, so we have, the only complaints that we've had so far is people's yards have changed. We now have some ditches, because we widened the cul-de-sac to allow for trucks to go around those cul-de-sacs. We had to go back into people's yards a little bit further. Bottom line, however, it's working perfectly, and I think it's going to be a great system, and people are going to really appreciate it.
Great.
But JJM does deserve the $7,000 that he bid for the project.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to pay JJM 7,000 for the storm sewer. And that was the French drain type system
That
we
is
put in,
correct,
right?
yes.
And here a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Dumont, second by Scott. Any discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Scott,
Yes.
Malik,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes. And now we got the McCoy Algae Pond project.
Yes, and what's even allowed this to come before you is the enclosure of the McCoy Road ditch now has allowed us to even consider the filling of this pond area. The way I see this happening is we would take the fill material, we push it from the north to the south, and push enough dirt in that the water would push towards McCoy Road. It would flow to the west down the storm sewer system, and eventually it would come into Wolverine Lake. To do that, we would make sure that we had the silt fences in, and we want to protect from any silt coming into the lake. This is the appropriate time of the year to do this, anytime between now and spring, if we were going to. The reason this is before you now is, and I certainly didn't know we weren't going to be able to spend money, but this is really before you for informational purposes. I wanted council to have some idea of the scope of work that is being talked about. That $13,000 to $15,000 in their bid for this project includes the removal of approximately 800 cubic yards of material that the village has stockpiled in the Commerce Township Park across the street. So this would include loading that, hauling it to the pond area, and a dozer sitting there pushing it into the pond. Unfortunately, that pond is going to need about 6,000 cubic yards to fill it to about road level. So you can see that this would just make a dent in the area adjacent to that existing home on Killarney. So we're really talking about substantially more money than this $15,000 that they've anticipated. I have, in fact, contacted 2 trucking companies who are in the middle of fairly big projects. And because our desire is not for a specified type of fill, everything that they haul away, they're going to haul to the place that costs them the least. So Metro Transport and another large trucking company does have material that they can allot to this project. The anticipation is that they would dump it here for free, and then we would just pay for the cost of the dozer to push it into the pond area. We would have to leave that timing open, because as they get material, as I told them, we can't have them come one day with one dump. So on a big project, they would then have their semis coming, dropping the load, and then we'd have a dozer pushing it into the pond. Both of those companies felt that it was probably a pretty good bet that they'd be able to fill that this winter, if we wanted to do that. Hence the cost for the dozer work there, $125 an hour. I'm convinced that, quite frankly, there's probably some lower cost contractors out there that has a dozer that they wouldn't mind operating periodically during the winter time. So this is, while I had them bidding on this, that is their cost.
The Diggers is right around the corner.
The what is?
The Diggers?
Yeah, yep, and that's Mark Russo, Team Diggers.
Yep.
And so I've got to call into Mark Russo to see what he might charge for this as well. So, and to have a dozer operator work during the winter instead of sitting in his office, probably have a little bit better. So anyway, I'm still pursuing that, but this gives that gives council some idea of the range that we're talking to fill that pond.
Well, the only question I have on filling a pond, if you bring in 1, 3, 7 loads, dumping it, how is it going to affect those 2 properties that are to the north? I mean, is it going to be dumped there and then pushed to the road? Or you dump at the road and push the water and everything towards those people? That's,
No, you hit it correctly the first time. You push from
Their
our 2
homes.
roadways, from
Right.
Wilkshire and Killarney, alongside their home. We create a plateau there that the dirt can be pushed then towards McCoy, not towards their home. And you always have to fill below the elevation of their walkouts or their finished floors in their yards. We can't get any water up in their yard, so we always have to be below
but
that.
do we need permits or anything, agreements with them? So if a dozer comes in, we don't wreck some fencing, driveway, whatever the case, and we end up with a headache after the fact.
Excellent point. Not for the home on Killarney, because the water starts outside their property. However, the home on Wilkshire, do I have that backwards? The home on Killarney is the one that has the walkout. So I had it backwards.
Right.
So on Killarney, that property owner has almost been begging us to do something to get that water out of there. That being said, however, he owns the first 2 lots south of his home.
Okay.
And the village owns the next 3. These are 25-foot lots along through there. So in talking to him, and this is going back a year or so when this was first thought that we were going to do this maybe with some millings, that property owner was very willing to deed over one of those 2 lots to the village, because it's costing the village money, but he's being benefited by eliminating this mosquito area next to his home. So we would start by getting permission to fill the lot right next to his house that he would keep as his yard. He would, if everything holds true, he would then donate the next lot to the village so that we would increase our holdings there for doing the work. The only thing he asked then, if that was going to be a park, that a chain link fence be put in, or some type of fence be put in between what the village wants to do and his yard. That's what he has asked for. So, that being said, we would have to make sure that we didn't impact those properties, and it would be done to,
Jennifer, is that something we have to pursue and put together with them,
Yeah,
if that's the
we'll-
case?
in our conveyance documents, and I don't know if is he gonna retain an easement for some reason, or?
no, he wouldn't
Okay.
retain an easement over the parcel that he donates to us.
Yeah. I'd have to look at the issue of the
Okay.
fence more closely, just because I don't know what the zoning regs are for that parcel, and, you know, we can look at all those
Right.
things, but
Right.
it's not impossible.
All right, I just don't want to see us end up, filling a problem and creating one,
Yeah.
so.
No, we can't do that, obviously.
How many yards did you say it would take to fill that whole pond?
Oh, just 6,000 yards.
6,000?
Correct.
Right? I
That's
mean,
a lot of gravel
6,000
trains.
yards.
So the bulldozer and the trucks are gonna be coming over the course of multiple days.
That's
to-
correct.
To fill this in.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
will they stockpile, the dirt and then have the dozer push it in?
No, because the only place to stockpile the dirt is on our roads.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we would not want to shut down the roads for any period of time. Now, the Metro Transport, who I talked with, is going to meet us out there and try to figure out the logistics, how to do all that with semis, but they honestly felt on a job that they haul, they could probably have 6,000 yards there in a week. That's how fast that they haul material.
So you'd have a dozer on site
On
5
site.
days ideally.
Correct. Right.
So
Not really talking
Would
that
they-
much additional money.
How does that affect the other side of the road?
Doesn't affect the other side of the road at all, because there's a culvert underneath McCoy, so their pond stays their pond, and it drains into the McCoy Road ditch line that we would be creating. As we fill this, we stop short of the right-of-way, and then the road commission has this really nice water ditch between McCoy and our property.
Makes sense.
Correct.
So, I mean, if they can supply the fill for nothing, I mean, it sounds like it's a win to us.
Then
Yes.
I guess we need to also act to find out what it's gonna take to get that property squared away, if they're willing to do it now, or basically this time of the year. Mike will have to get with you, Jennifer, and with the people and work out whatever it takes.
Correct. Yeah, that's the next step
Yeah,
if we
because
want to go
like you
forward.
said, they could do it this winter. and-
That's correct.
I would say it would make sense to pursue it, move
Yeah.
forward with it at this
Yeah.
point, and see what the avenue, what the possibility of having this thing go forward.
It would be very nice not to drive down McCoy and see that there anymore.
Yeah. Do we need a motion to have that?
No, I don't.
Okay,
Just
that's fine.
give us direction, and I think you have.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
eventually, yeah, we'll come back with some documents.
Numbers and a document.
Okay.
Yeah.
Documents, right.
Yeah, what's that?
Another item to talk
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we were talking about possibility of a $15,000 figure before, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, if we're looking at getting the free fill, period,
And it's just,
without hauling the other stuff over,
right,
it's just gonna be a dozer cost
that's exactly
alone,
right.
so, I mean, we could let that sit over there.
That's correct, and and Michael will have to work with that, because I know he's been working with Dave Scott regarding the cleaning up of that area. So, the hauling of the material is more expensive than us just having a dozer there filling.
Right.
You're correct.
Mr. Condit, do we have anything budgeted
No,
for?
we have not.
Nothing there, okay. So we won't be able to make a motion on that money to spend
Well,
anyway?
I think we need to,
Yeah, I don't have-
find out if we can move forward with it first,
Correct.
Bob, and then find
Okay.
out how much money we're looking at. We're essentially a
Right.
week's worth of dozer time at $125 an hour,
Yep.
Right,
which is probably around 6-7 grand.
right.
So, I mean, it sounds like a pretty reasonable
Yeah.
way to go.
Can't use the leftover from Greenway, eh?
That's why
That's what we
I asked
yeah.
earlier.
Yes. So I will
Maybe for
continue
top dressing.
talking with the transport companies and with other contractors to be able to narrow down those prices a little bit, and we can talk about, and maybe we can even have a meeting with the neighbor there, so that we can solidify those agreements
That
as well.
sounds like a great way to go.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, fantastic.
Super. Okay, next one, Penny Lake easement.
This item, I think maybe Mr. Smith Administrator Smith might want to start out, and then we can talk about it.
Just as we've been discussing, we do have the DNR deeded us that that parcel that's, is that north of the apartments? Harbor?
Yeah,
Yes.
north of the
But we need to have access to it. We don't have currently access to it. I've spoken with the niece a handful of times, with the aunt who owns the property. She stated to me numerous times, now's the time to act. And I'm thinking long-term, again, this doesn't mean that we're gonna have a park in the spring. It's more
We can get the easement
we need
anyways.
the easement.
tied up.
So this is the discussion to move forward if you want to pursue developing, which I think you're still working in the language for the easement that we're trying to do.
We can do it now. I didn't know if Jennifer's
Because
office
you
wanted
had
to
a
do the
quick
language.
overview or
I have the Exhibit A
Yeah.
for
Mm-hmm.
the easement agreement
Yeah.
for the owner.
Yes. So if you're interested in doing that, again, this could be a, 2, 3, 4, 5-year project down the road to basically create a boardwalk, in essence, we've had numerous discussions of a couple things with just kind of a floating one, or I forgot.
Actually,
Pylons or-
it'd be much like the
Benstein
boardwalk
Walkway.
along Benstein Road there, wider. I'm proposing 10 feet wide. And so the document that I have provides for a 20-foot permanent easement, or 5 feet on each side of the 10-foot walkway, and a 40-foot temporary easement for constructing it. And it would go from the walkway along South Commerce Road straight in to our park area, through that little wooded area there between the South Commerce Road and our park.
That's where the frags are, correct?
That's where one or two of those things are, yeah.
Partially, so.
So the thought with that is that we need to have the easement in place in order for myself to apply. I've already talked to the Eagle, DNR, multiple my parks, to get a TAP grant, which is a Transportation Alternative Program, a park pathway. You need to have a plan in place, well, you need to have an easement.
Mhm.
So we can show that we have this purchase, and that's our long-term master plan, is to then create basically a new public park is what it would be. So we have access to it, we can leave it as is, we can do whatever we want to it, but this is that first step, is that we need to have an easement. Now's the time to talk to her, have those discussions with the legal. She's ready to have her attorney kind of review that. There might be, of course, some cost to it, because we are getting land, but we wanted to see if there was interest to move forward. I don't, want to keep on bringing it up if there's no interest.
I think, speaking for myself as a council person, watching this over the years, yes, there's definitively an interest. This is granting access to something we've owned, and it's a shallow, unused piece of property right on the lake. There's a lot that you can do with that.
And there's nothing wrong with moving forward to gain an easement
To
right
gain
now
an easement,
if it's
sure.
available. So I think
And then we can see
it
what
would
we
make
can do
sense.
with grants.
If now's the time to try to gain that access, then I think it's probably prudent to move forward with it.
What's the probability, do you think, Michael? I mean, you've been talking with her.
She's
and I've
she's
talked to
very
her niece.
agreeable to it, but I do think, with they're listening to her, reading between the lines, I believe that there is the cost. So we have to come up with a market value, I believe, for that 10 feet by 30, whatever.
Wouldn't
10 by
we
20,
want her to
yeah.
propose a cost to us first, rather than we negotiate
Well,
back
that's
to
where I guess
her? I mean,
we'll
that's-
discuss on that.
At one point, they had been talking about the parking lot there or something. Is
Yeah,
that-
we've had a lot of discussions, so.
Okay.
They're worried about residents or visitors parking in their parking, so we'd have to have an agreement with them that that's off limits, no
Sure.
parking, towing at.
Well, it's their
racetrack.
land, isn't it? It's their property.
It's their property, yes.
Right.
And that, how we delineate
Private.
what is our parcel versus theirs, with having a split rail fence or whatever it might be, to show that there's a boundary.
So what do you need?
Just kind of a consensus, I guess, that we want to move forward to have the discussion with council,
Yeah.
legal counsel.
I think maybe if, lawyers sat down or talked about the different issues.
As
and
lawyers will do.
might, Yeah.
Sure.
Create some documents, or at least an offer,
Yeah.
or something.
Right.
So, I mean, this is one of those issues that comes up every so many years. But the first time we prepared an easement for this area was in 1997, so this has been going on like almost 30 years.
Time to put it to bed.
Right, 20 years, yeah.
Yeah, so if we have someone else speaking with power of attorney for the current owner, this is probably the best time to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there any expected report back time to council so that we?
Well, I know the
get
three of us
progressive?
are going to meet about other issues, so this can
Right.
add, I guess, to our.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
checklist of items we're gonna discuss.
What do you guys think?
Move forward.
Move forward? I think we have consensus.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, finally, Benstein pathway update.
Yes, this is the most discouraging one for me, obviously.
More
So-
discouraging than the algae pond?
So, yes,
And the heavy metals?
JJM was scheduled and is more than willing to still prepare the area for the pathway. Let me back up just a little bit. Due to the fact that a number of our property owners were unwilling to grant us an easement, and we didn't think that the council wanted to do any condemnation, we hired a surveyor to make sure that we knew precisely where the road right-of-way was. Based upon that survey, the pathway is going to be closer to Benstein Road than what we had originally anticipated, and it forces it a little bit closer than even the road commission would like. However, they know a pathway's much better than people walking down the edge of the road. So they're working with us on it. So we have JJM, who is more than willing to prepare the ground for that pathway, all the way from Clara Miller Park up to the Dairy Twist. Not on the Dairy Twist, because there's some encroachment issues that that we need to take care of first. So I had him set to start next week doing the prep, and then I touched base with the contractor who is the lowest bid for putting the asphalt down. His concern was, due to the unusually cold weather, even starting last week, that he's finding that when he puts the asphalt down, the asphalt cools so quickly that it gets brittle, and he has two problems. He loses the strength of the asphalt, and he loses the nice finish on the asphalt. He says the plants are going to be open through Thanksgiving, and then just possibly after that periodically. However, he is unwilling to guarantee the look and the strength of that asphalt. He's more than willing, so we have a contractor that can prepare it, we have a contractor that's willing to put it down. The contractor, however, says if he were us, he would not put it down, because there's a huge difference in the quality of the project if you're in warmer temperatures and the cold temperatures. He would ask the village to waive a guarantee on the pavement and the looks and the strength of the asphalt if he were to do it in this colder weather. Obviously, we're still 10, 15, 20 degrees below what it's supposed to be, and so it caught every project that I'm involved in, the pavement has stopped. So I wanted to bring it to your attention that the contractor's still willing to put it in for the same cost next spring, but as your engineer, I just don't think we ought to try to do it this fall.
I agree.
I don't see any benefit to it either.
Well, we haven't had it, so it's not that necessary. I'd rather have
Another 6 months.
a better product and wait 6 months for it. I mean, all we're gonna have to do is plow it this winter anyway, so.
Right.
Maybe we're
Well,
better
a lot
off
of people
holding off
be
until
walking
next
down
spring,
that.
warm weather, and put a good project together and get it done.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation to council.
Okay.
I think that's the
I
thing.
think that's the way to go.
Yeah, I agree.
Can I ask Michael about something else
Sure,
since we've got him up
absolutely.
here? McCoy and Ladd Road,
Yes.
the southwest corner. Okay, right now, everything's covered in snow.
Correct.
You've got 10-inch deep pits right along the roadway. People make that turn and they don't go onto the road all the way. They keep cutting through. Is that something that can, I know it probably can't be done now, but come spring, something's got to be done
Oh,
because it's just deteriorating and it's going to be breaking away the pavement.
No, it will be done before spring. As soon as we get any thawing at all, it can be done with the temperatures cold, so that's not an issue. And what's happening is when we designed that, we actually widened the right and left-hand right-of-ways, the pavement. But without those lines psychologically guiding people, they always cut it short, and so they're dropping off, even though there's 6 foot more pavement there than there was before, they're dropping off the edge of that. So JJM does come in occasionally, and the DPW goes out and fills those things. But until we get some lines out there, they're gonna be dragging off of it. And
Well,
that's
like I
planned-
say, I noticed that, before the snow fell, there was two big holes right along the edge of the
Right.
asphalt, and it's just gonna tear up the end of the asphalt and end up with more problems.
Right. So the paving, not the paving, the painting company that we used up at the
Right.
park, he's ready, willing, and able to move in there just as soon as
The
the
weather
pavement
permits.
dries. Correct. That's the plan.
Great.
Are we talking other observations to give it to the engineer? Why not? I'll throw
Sure,
one at you.
Absolutely.
As we have created that little area going before my property, and where we put the sewer line in,
Yes.
you have about a 6 or 8 inch crack that is developed, and it's starting, the pavement's starting to fall off into the lake. We've had a lot of erosion in that area, so maybe you want to take a look at that before we lose another chunk of pavement.
And I knew there was something going on there. When I went down there, that area was filled with leaves, and so I couldn't see what was
Yeah.
going on. So I appreciate you sharing that. I had no idea what was happening there. That little area was left there just to be able to pile snow.
Right.
Because if you pile snow and it melts, it's just gonna roll down to the lake. So I'll look at it just as soon as
Yeah,
I
just
can.
take a look at it.
Absolutely.
No rush on that.
Okay.
Anything else?
No?
Thank you.
Thank you, council, very much.
Thanks, Michael.
Alrighty. Moving on. We've got the public hearing here for CDBG.
Before we open, I just want to do I provided you with 4 options before we hear the public provide their options. Spoke to the CDBG individual at Oakland County. Option 1, these are administrative suggestions, is to remove architectural barriers, which is to provide ADA push-button door activators. So we have option 1 is stating to allocate, the proposed allocation that they're giving us is $7,000.
Did you get anything? No, I didn't get anything on that one either.
What's that? Oh, yeah, no, there's nothing on this. This
Oh, there's
is,
nothing in the books?
nope, nope.
Okay.
This is just, it's on your table right in front of you.
Yeah.
I gave you a new sheet.
Ah,
Somewhere.
underneath the,
So we can read it together.
got it.
So the first one is they're proposing, because we are a threshold community, therefore we are only allocated $7,000 for CDBG funds for the 2020 program year. One of the suggestions is to just do all $7,000 for ADA push button door activators for down here for these 2 restrooms, and for the 2 restrooms at the current restrooms at the park, Clara Miller. Another one is to just allocate all $7,000 to Haven. Option 3 is to do a half and half, where you could do $3,500, and then you could just basically say, we'll do $3,500 just to the village ones, just to these 2, because it might be more, or to Clara Miller. The reason I put that in there is because we were still deciding what we're gonna do with the restroom. So that's one of those ones up in the air. And there are different type of actuators that you can do. You can, whether or not we have to do the doors, you just have a retrofit, kind of different feature. There will be electrical updates as well. And then, so you do $3,500. You could decide if you want both or just village council chamber bathrooms, and then $3,500 to Haven. And option 4 is to basically maintain status quo, which is what we've been doing. Provide the minimum to Haven, which is $3,500, and the $3,500 basically give it back to the county for the home improvement, which is what we've been doing for the last 5 years now.
Yeah, and I think there has been some people in the village that have utilized that program, I
Yeah.
believe, in the past.
Yes.
I would like to see these doors be ADA compliant.
Yep.
So this is our, now we can,
Well,
Well, actually, we have a public hearing on it
yes,
first.
yep.
So
I just wanted to, we present the
we need
administrative
to have a
things,
public hearing.
and then we can discuss after.
discuss it in
Deal.
the agenda item.
Yep.
So at this point, we
Could
can.
use one of those doors right now.
We'll push the button, see if the door opens.
At this point, we can open the public hearing for the CDBG program for year 2020 application.
Anyone?
No
Anybody from
public
the public
hearing.
wish to speak on this? Okay, at that point, we'll close, I guess. So public hearing is now over, and we can move along to new business item A, which is recommendation to approve the program. So, I guess Bob's on his push button. Like I said, we
Recommendation to
have,
approve one of the options of the
Or,
program?
yeah.
or any combination thereof, I guess.
Yeah, or come up with our own option.
Well,
I would
within
think
reason.
option
Yeah.
number three.
Because there are
is-
certain projects you can't do.
Right.
Like, I had a ton of ideas that I broached with Mike, and we're just, and then I talked to Carla, and nope, can't do
We've tried that
that.
in the past, too, I think.
Yeah.
Well, if I understand from reading the Haven letter here, we've normally given them $3,000, correct? Is that?
Because that used to be the old minimum, the old
Mhm.
percentage.
Mhm.
They didn't know the new numbers that came out. That's what Carla stated from Oakland County.
Got
So
it.
the new minimum can be 3,500.
Okay.
So they requested 3,000, but we can give, like she stated, we can give 7,000, or we can give 3,500, or. And at any point, as we discussed, basically, like, say, we allocate 3,500 and the project comes in at 2,000 or
Mhm.
whatever, you can then reprogram those other funds back to.
To whatever.
To Haven or whatever.
Yeah, to another, after because the funds, as we know, don't get released generally probably until December. You don't get the funds right away, so.
Now, personally,
Looks
I
like
don't,
option
I don't
three is
see,
the-
I really don't see any sense in doing Clara Miller Park if we're
No.
looking at upgrading
No.
that.
Right.
So,
And that's why we put it, I put it on there because if you wanted to move back to that,
Mhm.
but as even when Mike and I were discussing today, we're like, I wanted to throw that out there, but we're still up in the air, I think, with those details, but
I think I agree with Dave, the fact that, we have the front doors now ADA
Yeah.
compliant, so it would make sense to have the bathrooms here compliant.
Yeah.
So that
Option
might be
three,
a good,
right.
good use of funds for that. And I know Haven has, we've benefited as a community for Haven too.
Now, we also have a restroom upstairs, is that,
that one is ADA, though there's no door on it, or no push button.
right?
So, I mean, yeah, we discussed all this because we don't have a low mod area because of the affluence, I believe, of the community. But because this services everyone, you are permitted to do
Right.
the architectural barriers. So you could, I guess you could do that one upstairs as well. I guess probably that one serves, I don't know.
More staff than,
Yeah, whereas this one,
public,
this even
yeah.
serves as an election precinct, so you
Mhm.
have more residents coming
Yeah.
down the ramp, and then it's harder for them to get the handles.
I guess I'd maybe say to do these two down here and
Definitely.
Yeah. And then donate the rest to, or allocate it to.
they'll allocate the
Haven.
balance to Haven.
Yeah, it's just, in the back of Haven, it says
I
that
agree with that.
they have spent $8,000 on behalf of the village.
I guess that's how we're reading it,
Yeah, I mean, so $7,000 is in, what is it? Forensic exams, that's not covered by the county?
I'm not sure, they just provided that, and
So they want 3, they're asking for 3, and they spend 8.
I know
Doesn't
that
make a
they
lot of
probably get
sense.
some offset because it's a pool,
Mm-hmm.
from, a lot of municipalities do dedicate some of their, or allocate some of their CDBG towards Haven.
Yeah,
We always have in the
Yeah.
past.
yeah.
It's a very common practice that's part of a lot of communities.
And this
Well,
is
if-
mainly
if-
domestic violence kind of work that they do, is what I'm reading, is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
I guess the other thing is too, if we allocate 3,500 for these two and it comes in less than that, the balance could be reallocated to Haven
Back,
for
yeah.
the balance.
So that's if this is $2,000, then we can give back the 1,500 to Haven.
Mhm.
Seems a proper thing to do.
Since this is CDBG funds, do we need 5, or is that, because it's not our funds?
No, you don't,
Okay.
you're good.
Are you looking for a motion or?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, your turn. It's my turn? Well, I'll make a motion that we accept option 3 on behalf of the expenditure of the CBD funds.
With the doors at Village Hall?
Yeah, with the doors at the Village Hall being an allocation of $3,500 for ADA push-button activators and $3,500 to pay, Haven. Any,
Second.
what do I want to say?
Residual or?
Yeah, any residual coming out of the architectural barrier improvements should be reallocated to Haven.
Motion by Scott, second by Dumont.
Right, and discussion-wise, what happens if it's more than $3,500 to do this? Because, you know, you gotta draw electricity for the push buttons, the whole ball of wax.
Stated because a lot of this is, most of the stuff is down here.
Right.
I looked at a quick glance at, because you can get the boxes that go on top.
Right.
Being, I guess, engineer, I don't know if you have input in.
But no, my only point is, let's say it comes up to $3,850.
Yeah.
Okay, you
Then
know,
we
do
would
we
have
wanna
to-
put like maybe a $4,000 cap, and then the balance of that,
Well,
you know?
we would pay, I guess, for the rest as the village. We would have to come back before, because we're only allocated this amount.
Well,
Okay.
well, let's say then, in the motion, all we gotta do is say that we're gonna allocate funds to, out of the $7,000 that we have, allocate funds to put these two together down here, and the balance would go to Haven. How's
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, that's.
What did you just say about a $3,500 cap? Is that, was I
That's
misinterpreting?
what their Haven is only, it's basically, if you do 2 projects, they can only get 3,500.
And that's not true for us. We can do the whole 7,000 for anything we want to do.
Correct.
Okay.
But like when you
Just wanna
break
make
it up,
sure.
it's,
Oh, okay.
they can get, it's basically, the way she stated is that theirs is $3,500 because we're a threshold community. She started talking about, you know, if we weren't, then you have a certain percentage that you can allocate.
I got it.
Because we're
So that
threshold.
means if it comes in at $3,000, they can't accept 4.
That's why we're going above what they're even asking. So,
Mm-hmm.
but we can allocate for future reprogramming.
Okay, that won't be an issue. Okay,
So we need any amendment, friendly amendment to
I
the
don't
motion,
think
right? No.
I think we're
Call for a
okay.
vote?
Okay, roll call, please.
Scott,
Yes.
Mallett,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Yes.
Metro.
Okay, we're off the CDGB. Second reading of adoption of ordinance 128A-2, which is regarding the Parks and Recreation Board.
With a yes. Under section 1, amendment, chapter 274, it still says PARK. Is that supposed to be Parks and Recreation Board as part of the?
Where?
Which one?
Under section 1, first section,
Uh-huh.
amendment, chapter 274, it says PARK. Should that be Parks and Recreation Board?
Well, that's how it used to read.
Used to be.
Okay, so this
So-
is the change then?
Yeah.
Down, if
Oh,
you look
okay,
further
repeal
down there, it
the
says to
entire
the
ordinance.
Parks.
I've got
Yeah,
it, yes, I'm
274-01,
sorry.
right,
Yep.
establishment.
Okay. So, introduced, and this is to
This is
adopt.
the adoption.
Yep.
Correct.
I make a motion to adopt,
Please.
which one is it now? Chapter 274, Parks and Recreations Board?
Second.
Second.
Motion by Malik, second by Dumont. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, recommendation to approve the first amended and restated 10-year agreement between the Village of Wolverine Lake and Church Township Commerce.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Dumont, second by Malik. Discussion.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yep.
Under the agreement, item number 3, I just want to make sure I understood what the reallocation values are here. Am I to assume that the Oakland County was going to provide, let's see, where is this at? I'm middle of that paragraph, approximately at the middle. At the time of the execution of this 2019 agreement, the taxes levied on real property and leased land within the village for police services consist of 1 millage in the amount of 0.3 mils as part of the Charter Township operating millage. That has nothing to do with the cost of the police. Is that some kind of property-related cost? What am I missing here?
So the formula kind of that they've come up with to calculate how much the
Of their police
township is
services.
collecting from village residents that would cover the cost of police services that they
From
would
Oakland
use.
Sheriff,
Police services that they
from
would
Oakland
use.
Sheriff, correct?
Well, no, if they were providing your police services.
I understand,
Like
yeah.
what that value would be. So that's just the formula that they've come up with so they know how much to pay you back.
Correct, I understand that. So
Okay.
what they're basically inferring or stating is that the cost for Commerce to cover our police requirements is 3/10 of a mil. Am I misunderstanding?
No. What that is a millage that you're going to be paying as part of the commerce levy.
Okay,
It was much larger than that when we first started this agreement back in 2006 or whatever it
Okay.
was. Remember, there was an election, I can't tell you when, but several years ago, where instead of continuing the millage, they opted for
They
a
backed it
special.
out.
Well,
Correct.
they adopted a special assessment district
Right.
and specifically exempted village property from that special assessment. The remnant is this .3 mils that village residents continue to pay. What we're going to do, we're going to continue to get that back. We have gotten that back every year since the inception of the agreement. The only other little kind of technical consideration in that section is that, let's say there's a substantial Michigan Tax Tribunal case involving a large amount of taxable value. And if it goes against, say, Commerce in the village where there's got to be a payback, they would be looking at us to remit back to them any funds that we'd have collected on that property.
never read that. Okay.
And in case you're curious, it amounts to right around, I think it's $44,000 last year. I think I have a slightly higher amount budgeted this year, but it would grow, essentially by the rate of growth in our taxable value.
Great.
So really, this is just a renewal or continuation of the agreement that you put into place in 2010, which is set to expire the end of this month. So this would be effective December 1st, running through...
2029.
Yeah, 10 years. And it doesn't really change any of the substantive provisions of that agreement. Some of the factors have changed a little bit, and they've tried to clean up the language, but essentially it's the same arrangement that you had previously. It allows the village to have representative on
On the
the township
park.
parks
Yep.
and rec.
Any other discussion?
Nope, I just want to appreciate Mike and council's work on this and working with Dave Scott. I believe it was on their agenda last night, isn't that what Mr. Scott stated?
Right.
So we're all moving together on this, and it's a great relationship that we're continuing on with.
Super. Thank you for helping put that together. Everybody. Roll call vote, please.
Scott,
Yes.
Mallett,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Knapp.
Yes. Okay. Set topics for the administrative committee meeting. I don't believe we really have any topics. Nope. We don't have to set for.
No second call to the public, I guess there's no.
Oh, that's right, yeah. I blazed right over that. Second call to the public, I'm sorry. We're 25 minutes early on that. Anybody wish to speak? Seeing none. We'll move to item F, which is set topics for the November 27th work session. I don't see
We're
any need to
canceling
have
that because
that.
it's right before things.
I'd like to make a motion that we eliminate that work session on the 27th.
Second.
Motion by Malik, second by Dumont. All in favor?
Yeah.
Opposed? We got that one. Okay, moving on to item G, which was
Administrator.
Yep, resolution
resolution to,
approve myself as the street administrator so we can get it to the state for Act 51 for the, yeah.
It's part of, council,
There we
it's
go.
part of
Yep,
a
there we go.
report I have to do in the aftermath of the audit. I have to give a report to the Michigan Department of Transportation, how we allocated our funds, how we spent it, how much have we spent on non-motorized transportation, a whole bunch of things. I actually even have a little map that I have to fill in that shows the paving projects that were done, so that for future reference, we can see what years they took place and so forth. It's actually a pretty cool tool. But anyway, I discovered that it just, Nathan was there, their record showed Nathan, we didn't change anything when Mike was appointed, so that's on me, I just didn't think of it, but it's just a mere formality, I hope. It's always been the village administrator who has been the street administrator, so Nathan and Sharon before him.
Okay, so we just need to move forward with the resolution.
Do we need a motion?
Yep.
Something to sign
I'll make the motion, but give me a hand wording it.
To
to adopt the resolution.
adopt the resolution.
To name, to designate Michael
Village
Smith
adminis-
as the
village
street
administrator,
administrator.
Michael
Street
Smith.
administrator.
I'll second
Yes.
it, that's enough.
You will be the street administrator.
Okay, motion by Dumont, second by Scott. Discussion. All in favor?
Mr. Condit,
Since we have this copy, this is just for reference, we don't all have to sign this in terms
No.
of.
No.
Just
Nope.
want to make sure.
Condit, I've been getting mailings from our wonderful representative about the high contest battle that's going on between the governor
Oh, the
and
budget.
the legislation about this 45 cents tax and et cetera. Just any quick update that has some impact or no impact upon us? I mean, well, obviously, if nothing happens, we are where we are, but I understood that the legislature is pushing to go the route that's in.
You may know a lot more than I do. I only know what I read from either SEMCOG or the MML, and I don't get that there's any, that they're anywhere close to being finalized, any of these discussions. What I do know, though, is that SEMCOG reported not too long ago that we're not alone, the village is not, in terms of augmenting local road funds with both major road fund supplement and a general fund supplement. The majority of communities around here are doing exactly that. So it tells you, I think in one sense anyway, that whatever the legislature had agreed to in the Snyder era was certainly not going to be enough to take care of the pressing needs that the communities, at least in our area, have. So my point being, the funding was inadequate. Let's hope something further comes about. And we can only cross our fingers and, hope for the best.
Okay,
Good.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries on that one. Any business? I don't believe we have any. We don't have a police chief. Mike?
Thanks for tuning into the audit presentation. Good shape, no real rain clouds on the horizon. With that data, however, I'm going to be putting together a presentation for you that will show what we're going to look like 4 or 5 years into the future, depending on our level of capital expenditure and so forth. There are a lot of assumptions there. But we do have some additional labor costs, and it's something that needs to be on everybody's radar screen.
Okay, thank you. And where are we at on the new accounting program?
Oh,
As far
well,
as
yeah.
software.
One of your approvals today, as far as warrants, was a downstroke to the tune of 16 grand to the outfit, you know them as BS&A. We're going to have a preliminary meeting next month, but the rollout schedule is still not slated to take place until sometime in June.
Ooh,
Well,
wow.
Yeah, that's how far out there we're booking.
Holy moly.
Well, it says two things. It shows you how popular they are, I
Yeah.
guess. It also shows you how woefully understaffed they are, at least as far as training.
Wow.
well, that's a
Wow.
negative.
Okay, well, thank you. Mr. Smith?
Yes, Veterans Day was on Monday. I want to thank everyone, all those who have served and continue to serve our country. With that in mind, I do want to remind everyone that you can purchase a brick, of course, for the future Veterans Memorial. I believe that we've had discussions that we're hoping to have just even for donations as well, working on that. But again, bricks, you can go to the website. There's information on our website all throughout the parks where you can pick up stuff. We'd love to get that, to get more bricks purchased for the veterans. The reason Chief Ellsworth's not here, it is the 15th anniversary of the passing of his son. So that my thoughts go out to him and his family as they're celebrating together, I guess, the life of Justin. So that's why he did tell me he would not be here because of that. So thank you for all the service for that. Thank you to the DPW, of course, for this amazing amount of snow that we got, I guess. Kind of put
First pass.
First pass, yeah. Thank you to them for all their hard work, the guys there for getting the roads clear and really working on that. Again, thank you as well to the police department for helping all of the many traffic accidents that occurred. Really put in a lot of hours this last couple days. Leaf collection, that's a common question that's coming up now. Andy has spoken with GFL, of course, because of the snow. They've gotten sidetracked with a lot of other things too, because of the trucks being broken down. But we will restart that again on Monday due to the weather. So they hope to be back out. I believe Andy has posted it, and I know that Glencourt, Amarillo, there's a couple other streets that they weren't able to get to last time. That's where they're gonna start first. So that's the questions I've gotten the most from a lot of residents. So if they can see the pile, they think it's leaves, they will get it with the team phone. So it might be snow, but we'll see. And then I believe that they're hoping just to finish it off next week is the last pass, I guess, before everything. Update, fish stocking did occur. We purchased 960 walleye. I helped the gentleman from Imlay City stock them. It was quite a long or short process, just kind of put them out there and they're gone. So we did do that.
How big were they?
They were about
7, 8 inch?
Yeah, something like that.
Nice.
So they were stocked. Yeah, hopefully they'll go off and grow well and everything for future fishing. GFL, again, due to a lot of their, I believe, uptick in contracts that they have been awarded, and I believe they were awarded Waterford, now Commerce Township. That's kind of changed their timeline now. They've stated to us that our garbage pickup date moving to Monday will now actually not begin until January. So we're hoping to work on notices. I know Mr. Scott came in. He said that he's working with his Commerce residents through them to mail out notices to their residents, so we're hoping we can kind of work together. We already have drafted kind of a letter, but if we might work on a postcard to kind of give to our own residents to mail out, and they will pay for that cost to do that. Snow stakes, we do have snow stakes at the village. We have a box of those up there, I believe, now that we have snow. It's a little later, but more December thing. Update on two of the last things. People's Express. We are now going to be utilizing People's Express for senior transportation through Commerce Township. That is who they went with. I know it's been in the news through Spinal Column. I know there was a lot of discussion between WODA. We had those discussions. I think we're going to go through, White Lake and Highland created WODA. And we're still, I think, we're going to follow suit with what Commerce is doing since our residents go to Richardson Center, so it makes sense to do that. We've had a great conversation with that. We're going to see where that goes. They will be billing us on a quarterly basis for per trips. Right now, I think our ridership, I believe, is at like 3 that have continually used it for things. So we'll see what that comes from. If there's an uptick and more ridership, and that's where we're kind of waiting to see for that first year if we want to then go to WODA and stuff. But we'll follow Commerce Townships, what they plan to do. At one of the last meetings, we talked about no-haz through the county. I did investigate it, and lo and behold, there is a cost. The cost to join in with Oakland County would be tentatively around $6,000. But what that means is basically then any Wolverine Lake resident can go to any of the events throughout the year and do, like they have one at Orion, I think Waterford, Auburn Hills. They always have like a couple sites. Of course, the more communities that take part in it, the lower that cost is, but sometimes it can kind of waver because you need more staff. So I think what we'll just do is I'll reach out to Dave Scott again in Commerce Township, and when they do theirs in September of next year, say, hey, how can we get involved with that and see what that is. So just wanted to give you an update on that, and look forward to the appreciation dinner in December, and we're moving forward with that.
The 10th.
The 10th. So
Great.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Council comments, Mr. Malik.
A couple things. You mentioned about the stakes that are available. And also, did you put that out on the website?
Not yet, no.
And also, do you make comment for people to know that they can get compost bags?
I believe it is.
You know, I think what is it, they're allotted 5 a year or
5,
something?
yeah. There's a pack
And
of
I don't,
5.
I mean, I talked to a couple of neighbors. I happen to have a neighbor across the street who's working 12, 14 hours a day, and her mother's been over, doing her leaves, and she lives in a village also, and she had no idea. And she's on the website, I just think it's something that people should be made aware of, like we give out the off, once a year in the spring.
Sure.
So that's just the only thing.
Can make it
And-
more present.
Right,
more
right.
visible.
And to our treasurer, thank you for the job well done to get the report we got.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Mr. Malik.
And the administrator and everybody else that contributes.
Okay. Dave?
Ice is real thin.
Yeah.
If it's even existing, yeah. Is it?
That's it.
And those walls
Scott.
aren't ready, eh?
I'll see you tomorrow, Mr. Conduct, to see if I can pick up a copy of the.
Get it for you tonight.
Huh?
I'll get it for you tonight. I'll just go upstairs and just hang for a few
I don't
minutes.
have to do that tonight. I think I've been down in council, but we now have an Oakland County flag, I think.
the
I
one
see
that balances it out.
And,
That's right.
The layers
is
of
new.
bureaucracy.
Yeah, I wanted to watch this portion of the council tonight on the recording to see what it looks like behind you, but it looks good.
Yeah.
It looks good. I think it's a great idea. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Somebody thinks
I
it's
don't know
Wayne
who's
State.
in charge of pulling the Oakland County flag out, but, the treasurer. That's a nice ensemble. Other than that, have a great weekend.
Okay,
Coming up.
I'm probably gonna be the longest one tonight then. First of all, I wanted to thank everybody that showed up at the packing party. It was a great success. We packed over 1,200 boxes this year, which was a record. Had a big turnout, had a lot of people helping, so. And also, we've been getting some great letters back from some of the recipients. And so I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that they could go to the Wolverine Lake Packing Party Facebook page to see some of those. I mean, we got some cool pictures back from KC-135 pilot that took some pictures refueling some A-10s over Afghanistan. And some very nice letters, like I said. So appreciate everybody's help on that. Just wanted to say safe and happy hunting to all those that are going after Bambi this weekend and gun season. And happy Thanksgiving to everybody. So,
Right.
with that, motion to adjourn.
So that motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Malik, second by Duma. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, everybody.